Let's welcome John Monsell to OpenTechTalks.tv. Welcome, John.
Thanks. Good to see you, Kashif. How are you doing today?
I'm doing very well. Thank you so much for joining us. If you can just give us a short brief about yourself, where are you based? That will help
Sure.
audience to relate to it.
Yeah. So I'm in Lafayette, Louisiana, and our company is Bazooka, Bizzuka. We're about 26 years old. And 4 years ago, we pivoted away from being a software development and digital marketing agency into completely AI consulting and coaching. So we have been doing nothing but working with our past clients and new clients and teaching them how to embed AI in the organization and get more productive and increase market share.
And what pushed you to change from digital software
Good
to teach
question.
the AI?
Yeah. Well, prior to this, I was actually in financial services for like 17 years, and then the web came out. And so I thought, well, there's the new frontier. So I left financial services and started a software development company. That was back when, websites, there was nothing to build a website with other than the first line of code. So we started to do that and we started to grow. And then we built our own web content management system. And then we gradually became a digital marketing agency. And then we started to use AI to assist. This is back when Jarvis was Jarvis instead of Jasper.
Yeah.
And then there was Copy A,
Yeah, Jazz. Then it's become
right?
Jazz.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, back then it would just kind of talk in circles, but at least you could start from something better than a blank sheet of paper. And then I decided, I think it's time for me to shed 40 employees and get down to where we could be more mobile. My wife and I were about to become empty nesters, and I thought, well, this would be fun, and I saw this. It was an opportunity to just become a fractional CMO. And so I spent a year working with customer clients and teaching them every Friday about marketing. And I, got to where I was using AI because I, went from 40 down to 3. So I had to use AI. And so it turned out they were more interested in how I was using AI than marketing. And so I was like, okay, well, now I know what problem the market's wanted solved. So I started to build out frameworks and processes. And then they convinced me to turn it into a course. So I did that. And then I got a call from LSU, a university about an hour from here. And the provost wanted to come over and talk to me and see what I was doing. So I showed him, and then he became really interested in it. And so we ended up developing a program through LSU's continuing ed. We did that for about a year, and then it kind of grew from there. And people convinced me to write a book. And so last year, I wrote a book called Ingrain AI, and it teaches everybody our framework so they could actually incorporate AI into their own organizations and scale it. And that's kind of how it all went down.
Okay, that's good to know. Thank you so much. So if so, you came from a software engineering, right? Software development. In software development, 3 years before and now, what has changed?
Well, gosh, so much. And it seems like every week it gets even more crazy, right? So if you think about it, when we started the company, when we started this thing in 97, and in 97, well, I mean, if you really want to see how old I am, I graduated college
On
and
it.
I was using punch cards to write code, and that was,
Mhm.
you didn't want to mess your deck up, right? Because you had a deck of cards. So when we created our company, I had like a team of 6 or 7 developers, and it would take us the better part of 2 weeks just to come up with a design spec before we even started writing code. And then we would start writing code, and then, we would have to bring in a person who is familiar with user experiences and UI design. And so you started to get this team kind of going back and forth, and things would take forever. So our content management system, I think it took us the better part of a year and a half to build. And we had a company pay us $1.5 million to build it. So I could probably build that same thing in a week with some vibe coding tools and an engineer. Um, at I don't know, 5 grand, so it's a whole lot different. I built a tool just the other day to help our clients get a grip on the level of mastery of their. We're working with a university. We got about 9,000 people we have to train. Okay.
Right.
Um, in order to train them, we have this thing that we call 10 levels of AI mastery. And so we have to
Mhm.
figure out where they are now and how do we bring them up to, say, level 5 or 6. And they're
Right.
typically at level 2. Well, in order to do that, we had to build an assessment. And that assessment then would create a heat map that would show where the organization is. So we could gradually move that organization into, say, a level 5 or 6 cumulative mastery. Well, I had to build that assessment. Then I had to build the tables to store all that incoming information. I had to
Right.
build the baseline. Then I had to create the table that would show the heat map. And so I had a front end display that the executive team could look at and watch this thing unfold. Well, that whole process would have taken me the better part of 9 weeks to build, probably. It would
Right.
have taken me a week and a half to build the design spec, then in another week just to go back and forth on what the UI would look like, and then what the survey would look like and what the questions were. We'd have to bring in an organizational psychologist and all sorts of other stuff, right? I built that whole thing in a weekend. That's how different things are now. I mean, literally, I built it by myself in a weekend using AI. So things are a whole lot different.
Okay. Now let's relate this situation of building by yourself and while you're training different folks, different organizations. So basically, you are enabling their talent.
Hmm.
So if you relate, you build up, and then when you go to, and then you got start training, and then you're enabling them. How you relate that one, where they are now, what is the situation of the talent?
It's interesting because what we typically do is we start with a workshop with the executive team and we want to understand where they are. So we describe the 10 levels of mastery. We start with level 1. Level 1 is just asking a question of AI and getting a response and going, wow, I'm a genius, And then level 2 is like, maybe I should ask a better question. How do I structure the question? And then it goes on up. So I start describing these and I have everybody stand up in the room and I say, sit down if you haven't started operating at this level. And I kid you not, because no matter where we go, no matter how many people in the room, 95% of the people are sitting down at level 3. And there's 7 more levels to go. Right. And so
Okay.
if your collective wisdom of AI in your organization is stuck at level 2 or 3, you have a problem. We need to get that up to where it's 5 or 6. At 5 or 6, that's where you have the dramatic impact in an organization. And that's why it's important to understand where the organization is now and then have a plan for migrating it upward and a mechanism monitoring that. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Yeah, that very well makes sense. So it must be during last, and I'm relating to last 2 to 3 years when generative AI, right? Now with these level 10, which you are going to an organization, and these are program is how it is structured. It's like quite lengthy, short, or what is the duration of that?
So we do it a couple of ways. We can do it in a kind of a boot camp workshop, live and in person kind of a method, or we can do it in a learning management system with live office hours. So people could actually go through recorded training on their own twice a week. We have live office hours. And if the organization is big enough, like one of these universities that we're working with, we have a unique office hours just for their people. But that allows them to do a little work on their own time and then come and ask questions and try to, we help them orchestrate their way through the whole process. So they're actually not just taking a course and answering a quiz at the end. They have to build something. And so the challenge for each one is that they have to build a tool on their own that shaves 3 hours a week off of their day or off of their work, I
Mm.
should. And it's that challenge that you can monitor, right? And so when they complete the course, they have to
Mhm.
have told us what's the tool they're going to build, what was the baseline of performance going into it, and what was the baseline after they completed the course. And that it's not just, you know, pressure for them, it's fun, right? They like, "Oh,
Okay.
I built this with my own hands," right? And that's what's cool. So that's how we do it. It's a hybrid approach is, I guess, how I would phrase it. And it could take somebody 3 weeks, and it could take somebody 6. It just depends on how much time they have to go through the training.
How do you see from organizations' point of view? Are they investing easily on talent development, or is it still in the old age? We don't need it, and our team they themselves improve, learn whatever they need to do it. So how is
Yeah.
it going? What's your experience, first-hand experience?
Yeah, I imagine yours is the same as mine. So, here's the thing, education or learning and development in an organization is typically way underfunded and way underappreciated. And when it comes to AI, because it appears easy, everybody thinks, "Oh, well, you know, how hard is this? You just ask a question, you get a response. I mean, how hard is that?" But then you get into the hallucinations and you get into the mistakes and you get into the back and forth and back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And then people go, well, this isn't saving me any time. And that's because they don't know how to use it. And so what we have to do is we definitely have to educate the leadership team to understand what's possible. But we
Right.
also, because we've been doing this for so long, we know that if you leave an employee up to their own devices, they will eventually get to level, say, 5 or 6, but it will take them 19 to 24 months to get there. And by that time, the world has left you by. But in training, we can get them there in 2 to 6 weeks as opposed to 19 to 24 months. Now, what that does, of course, that time compression gives you a workforce that is more powerful than any other workforce you've ever had. But we've shortened that cycle. You know, instead of you waiting 2 years for them to be powerful, you're waiting 2 months. And think about what that extra 22 months of productivity will bring you. It's significant. But yeah, there's a curve that you have to go through with a leadership team to make them see what that's all about. And the only way to do that is through what we call an executive alignment workshop, which is a 4-hour workshop with the executive team to where they get to actually build the tools themselves. And then they see just how powerful it is.
Okay. Now let's see. Now that brought me to a question. Okay, what's the biggest you can say hidden cost of this bad AI adoption that leaders don't see it when you're talking to them and without going all these trainings and enablements?
So here's what typically happens. What typically happens is an outside vendor approaches a company and says, "Hey, I can build an AI tool for you. All right. I can build a customer facing chatbot, or I can build some sort of financial analysis tool, or I can build a tool that solves a problem in your organization using AI. And it sounds sexy and it sounds like, oh, you're going to save me millions of dollars." And so that's their first foray into AI adoption. And if you look at what the consultants out there, the KPMGs and the Accentures, et cetera, all of their studies are saying that 86% of companies have adopted AI. But their definition of adoption is that single tool. If they've got a tool, they've adopted AI. That's not even close to the truth. So what happens is if their level of mastery, think about this, if their level of mastery is operating cumulatively in the organization around level 2 or 3, what the vendor is pitching them on is a level 8 or 9 application. And so the only one that knows what happens at a level 8 or 9 application is the vendor. And the cumulative knowledge or expertise in the organization is 7 levels off from that. So they don't really know how to participate. They don't know whether what they're providing is enough. And they don't know how to tell when the result could be better or whether the result is really bad. And so that's why MIT found that 95% of AI initiatives fail. And it's really, I think they kind of misdiagnosed the root cause. The root cause is the lack of cumulative expertise in the organization to actually assist that. But when you get it up to that, you know, your cumulative expertise in the organization up to those level 5, 6, and 7s, that's when all of those bigger initiatives become way more successful and you get ideas for more initiatives, but the cost goes down because everybody knows how to participate. And by that time, they've already built a lot of the tools that that initiative needs to be successful. If you don't go that way and you end up just hiring a vendor, then you end up spending an enormous amount of money on an initiative that has a 95% chance of crashing and burning. So that's that's the cost.
So if as an organization, if someone gives a team ChatGPT license today and they think that solves the problem and then they will have a successful project, what do you think?
Well, I think they're missing 95% of the boat, right? I mean, look, there are way more tools out there than ChatGPT. And if they're just looking at it from the chat interface where we ask it a question and it gives a response, then again, you're missing out on a significant amount of the power. But when you start learning how to build tools to where if one of my problems is that every morning I get to the office and I have to digest a whole lot of information and then distribute it to my team and then look at the information that they gave me from the night before or the day before and organize all that stuff. And that takes me 3 or 4 hours before I can get productive. Or I can get AI to digest all of that information automatically for me and prepare the distribution instructions for me, then I can have that done autonomously overnight. And when I wake up, I'm hitting the ground running and my team already has what they need, but I don't have to spend an hour and a half or 3 hours trying to figure that out. Same way with emails. I could name, use case after use case after use case, but if I build that tool, then everything is different. But if I could teach everybody to build their own tools, that's really, really powerful. And it doesn't mean just because you're the CEO, you can't build these tools. I mean, we had a CEO in our organization build his own tool. Now, this is the CEO who was just test driving training to see, what is this whole chat GPT thing all about? I already been using it, and yeah, it's pretty cool. It gives me responses. But when he went through the training, he ended up building a tool that would analyze an RFP that would come in a giant 300 some odd page PDF. He could analyze the RFP, find out where their product was in this whole thing because they would send these RFPs out to millions of vendors that do different parts. He could analyze that thing. It used to take him 3 to 6 hours to analyze it just to decide whether they wanted to respond to the RFP. He can now do it in 20 minutes. And it used to take them 2.5 weeks with 2 to 3 people to actually build the response to the RFP. So it was an enormous investment just to respond to an RFP. He can now create the entire response to the RFP in 2 hours with one person. And the CEO built that, right? He's used to delegating, but he actually built it with his own fingertips. That was a big light bulb moment for him.
So if a CEO has 30 days, what should they do first to implement AI properly?
In 30 days,
I
again,
mean, to set this foundation or set the start, right?
yeah. I mean, if the CEO's got 30 days, the first thing I think they should do is create do what I would do as an assessment. I would find out from everybody in my organization what are those tasks that they do that are repetitive that have the lowest value but the highest consumption of time. And I would make that list and then I would get with, somebody like us and I would say, okay, how much of this can we change with AI? How much of this can we hand off to AI? And what's the financial impact to our organization if we did? We call that an AI impact analysis. It's just a matter of showing them, look, all of the people in your organization can build these tools. If they build these tools, each person will shave off 5 to 10 hours a week. You multiply 5 to 10 hours a week times the number of employees times 52 weeks. Now you know what your economic impact is. So that would be the first thing that I would do probably in the first 2 days. That tells me just how impactful this could be. And even if it's only 30% accurate, it's a big number. And then I would go about, okay, how do I actually upskill people? What's the incremental distribution of that training? Who do I start with? And then I would build a plan to do that. And then I would put my first cohort of people through that and benchmark it, and then see where we land at the end of 30 days.
For individuals, if someone wants to become valuable in the AI era, right? What should they learn first? Any suggestions based on your day to day working with
Yeah.
them?
Well, so I know that the latest research shows that somebody who really knows how to use generative AI tools, um, they make about they're all different studies, but last study I saw was they make 170% more than somebody that doesn't know how. Okay, so first thing is you can make more money if you learn how to use AI. Now, why is that? Because the people who really know how to use it are few and far between. But if you learn how to use it in your job, think about the institutional knowledge that you're now bringing forward, and you're helping the entire company operate at a whole new level. You're now pretty doggone valuable inside of that organization. And so I think if I were going to forecast what you need to be learning now, I would say that you need to be learning how to use tools like Claude's Cowork. At a minimum, you should be learning how to build skills inside of Claude, which you can also now use in ChatGPT, and you can use it in Gemini, et cetera. So the markdown file structure is becoming somewhat of an industry norm. So you need to learn how to do that. And skills are basically just things that make your job easier. That's the stupidest and simplest way to phrase it. But it's taking your own institutional knowledge and putting it into a format that you can transfer back and forth between different models, and you don't have to constantly educate it or go back and forth with questions and answers. But it'll pull that knowledge and then execute a task for you.
Before we conclude, maybe a couple of more questions. As you're working with C levels and then also helping the organization, so what's the biggest gap between what we're seeing as an AI hype and then real implementations?
I think the biggest hype right now is that the AI agents are going to, take over the world. I think AI agents are going to be really, really important, but I also believe that security is not keeping up with the pace of autonomous agents. And so I don't think that agentic future is going to be here tomorrow, because I think you're going to see a lot of companies put the air brakes on it until they can get their heads wrapped around security, which is, what Anthropic just talked about last week when Mythos, when they realized, ooh, Mythos is way more powerful than we thought, and it could do some pretty bad things in the hands of the wrong people. So that's where I think you're seeing a whole lot of hype about the potential, and the potential is real, but the risks are far greater, and there is no capacity to mitigate those risks right now. And that has to hurry up and catch up before I think you're going to see really significant mainstream adoption with autonomous AI.
So, if every business leader listening takes one action tomorrow with AI, what should it be?
Honestly, I think it would be they should figure out where their organization is in terms of its cumulative AI expertise, and then realize that if you could just move it up one level, then you've got a pretty significant financial impact. But when you realize that you have room to move it up 4 levels, that's where you really have an awareness of what this could mean to you. So the first thing they should do is figure out where they are, and figure out and recognize how far behind they actually are. Getting there is a lot easier and a lot faster than you think. But you just have to invest in it. And that's the key.
Thank you so much for sharing your time. And I liked your these 10 levels because I'm very well versed. I even myself prepared a generative AI a maturity assessment framework, and then I work with the organization. So one part in my maturity assessment, one dimension is talent, right? But what you did is in that you took the talent and then you expanded it entirely. That okay, what does talent mean and how you level 0 or 1 to 10. I like the approach which you're following up.
Yeah,
Excellent.
thanks. Good deal. Appreciate it. Well, thanks for
Yeah.
having me on. I enjoyed it.
No problem at all. Thank you so much for joining. And definitely, I will also add maybe, in this Gen AI maturity assessment, I will refer to you that, okay, when the dimension talent comes, then you should go to John and ask him how you want to do that one.
There you go.
Lovely.
All
Lovely
right.
talking to you. Thank you so much for joining and spending time.
You bet. Pleasure.
Thank you.